Have you ever walked into your own home, only to question everything you thought you knew about trust, loyalty, and family? This is the story of Marcus Alden, a billionaire who returned home unannounced, only to find his young son with the black maid he had once trusted completely. In that moment, suspicion collided with fear, and a single choice shattered lives. But here's the real question. What would you have done if you stood at that doorway? Would you rush to protect, or pause to listen? Would you see the truth, or only your own fear reflected back at you? This isn't just Marcus's story. It's a mirror, showing us how fragile dignity can be, and how quickly love can be clouded by judgment. And it forces us to ask when life tests us with suspicion and doubt. Will we choose grace, or will we destroy the very people who hold us up? Stay with us, because the twists ahead will challenge your heart, and maybe even your memories of choices you once made. If this journey stirs something in you, please like, share, and subscribe, so you don't miss the full story that begins right now. The late afternoon sky over Newport carried that pale, golden light that makes the ocean shimmer like polished glass. Marcus Alden's black SUV rolled up the long stone driveway of his seaside mansion. He had returned 2 days earlier than planned, deliberately without alerting anyone. For a man who managed multi-billion-dollar deals, he found a strange satisfaction in surprising the people at home, especially his 8-year-old son, Ethan. Marcus had just closed a week of tense meetings in Manhattan. Investors pressed him for faster returns. Board members questioned his diversity programs, and whispers about his every move reached the financial press. At 48, he carried the dignity of a man who had fought through every barrier placed in front of him: poverty, racism in boardrooms, and the endless skepticism that followed a black man at the top. Yet what mattered most now was the warmth of home, the chance to hold his son and shake off the cold mask of corporate war. He pushed open the heavy oak door. The house smelled faintly of lemon polish and sea salt carried in by the breeze. He smiled, expecting to hear Ethan's quick footsteps and his laughter echoing through the hall. But the mansion was quiet, too quiet. He climbed the stairs, leather shoes tapping softly against the wood, until he heard a muffled sob from the guest bedroom at the end of the hall. His chest tightened. He walked faster. The door was ajar. Inside, the late sunlight fell across a small figure on the bed. Ethan sat clutching his forearm, tears streaking his face. Beside him stood Naomi Brooks, the housemaid, holding a white towel spotted with blood. Marcus froze. The image branded itself into his mind. His child in pain, his maid standing with evidence in her hand. What happened here? His voice thundered before he could control it. Ethan looked up, his lip trembling. She hit me, Dad. Marcus felt the floor shift beneath him. Naomi's dark eyes widened. She shook her head slowly, lips parting as if to explain. But Marcus's rage surged first. You laid a hand on my son? His words cracked like a whip. Naomi tried to step forward, towel still in her hand. Mr. Alden, listen to me. No, Marcus's voice rose, echoing off the high ceiling. Get away from him. Ethan sniffled, hiding his face against the pillow. Marcus rushed to his side, pulling the boy close, inspecting the angry purple mark blooming on his forearm. His mind raced. Images of headlines, social workers, lawyers flashed like warning sirens. But louder than all of it was the raw instinct of a father who had already lost his wife. Naomi stood rooted, her voice shaking yet steady. You don't know what you're doing, Marcus snapped back. I know enough. Pack your things. You are finished here. The towel slipped from her hand, landing with a soft thud on the hardwood floor. For a heartbeat, the room was silent except for Ethan's sobs. Then Naomi turned, shoulders squared, and walked out without another word. Marcus's pulse hammered in his ears. He pressed a kiss to Ethan's hair, whispering, "It's all right, son. I've got you." But beneath the words, a different voice gnawed at him. Doubt, fear, and the ghost of every battle he thought he had already fought. Downstairs, the front door closed with a hollow echo. The house felt even larger, emptier. Marcus lifted Ethan into his arms. His son's small body trembled against him. "Daddy, don't be mad," Ethan whispered. "I'm not mad at you," Marcus said. Though his voice cracked under the weight of confusion, he carried Ethan to the master bedroom, set him gently on the bed, and called the family doctor. As he waited, he stared at the blood-stained towel still clutched in his fist. The crimson blotches blurred as his vision stung. He wanted answers, but anger had drowned out explanation. For the first time in years, Marcus Alden, the man known on Wall Street for his unshakable calm, felt utterly unmoored. The doctor arrived within the hour, his leather bag clicking as he set it on the nightstand. Marcus hovered beside the bed while Ethan sat with his arm outstretched, small fingers twisting nervously in his lap. "Doctor?" Reynolds adjusted his glasses and pressed gently around the bruise. Ethan winced, but didn't cry out. After a long pause, the doctor looked up at Marcus. "This doesn't look like a strike from a hand," he said carefully. "The shape, the pressure, it resembles a fall, perhaps against a wooden edge or railing." Marcus's brow furrowed, but he said Naomi hit him. "I saw the blood on the towel." Reynolds leaned back, his expression neutral but tinged with something unspoken. "Children can say things when they're scared. I recommend observation, but medically, this doesn't align with an assault. I'll make a note in my report." When the doctor left, the house felt silent again, only the crash of the waves outside breaking the tension. Marcus sat on the edge of the bed, running a hand across his face, his thoughts tangled like barbed wire. Ethan's voice was small. "Daddy, are you mad at me?" Marcus forced a smile. "No, son. I just need to keep you safe. That's my job." But the words tasted bitter. Keeping safe. Hadn't Naomi been the one who tucked Ethan in every night when Marcus stayed late at the office? The one who made grilled cheese sandwiches the way Ethan liked, cutting them into triangles, the one who taught him to tie his shoelaces. Still, Marcus's anger had acted first. He had expelled her from their lives in one sweeping order. By morning, the news had already spread. Naomi's car was gone from the driveway, her room stripped bare. The house staff whispered in corners, their eyes flickering toward Marcus and then away. His phone buzzed with a message from the Child Protective Services office. In Providence, an agent would visit that afternoon for a welfare check. Standard procedure in cases of alleged child abuse. Marcus gripped the phone until his knuckles whitened. He had wanted to protect his son. Now it felt like he had opened a door to scrutiny, suspicion, and headlines he couldn't control. He paced the great room, walls of glass revealing the restless Atlantic beyond. Memories of Grace, his late wife, seeped into his thoughts. Grace had always been the steady one, the anchor when his temper rose. She had believed in patience, in listening before judgment, and now, without her voice, Marcus felt adrift. "Was I wrong?" he whispered to the empty air. At noon, 2 CPS workers arrived, a man and a woman carrying clipboards and the practiced calm of people who had seen too many broken homes. Ethan sat on the sofa, clutching his stuffed bear, Marcus answered their questions stiffly, feeling both defensive and ashamed. The female agent, Ms. Lopez, looked at Ethan kindly. "Did Naomi ever hurt you?" Before Ethan hesitated, eyes darting to his father. "No, she's nice. She reads me stories." Marcus's stomach clenched. "Then why did you say she hit you?" the agent asked gently. Ethan's lower lip trembled. He didn't answer. Tears welled and rolled down his cheeks. Lopez scribbled something on her pad, then stood. "We'll need to follow up. Mr. Alden. For now. Continue to monitor him. But I'll be honest, this doesn't look like abuse." When they left, Marcus sank into the leather armchair, head in his hands. His empire of glass towers and corporate power meant nothing in that moment. He had acted on fear, not truth. That evening, he walked through the kitchen. The counters gleamed, but the familiar hum of Naomi singing softly as she cooked was gone. The absence pressed on him heavier than stone. He poured a glass of bourbon, stared at the amber liquid, and wondered when he had become the very man he despised, the kind who judge without seeing. His phone buzzed again, this time with a message from his head of communications in New York. "Press inquiry rumor spreading about an incident at your home. Do we need to prepare a statement?" Marcus's chest tightened. It was beginning. Once the media caught the scent, there would be no hiding. Ethan padded into the room, pajamas wrinkled, hair tousled. "Dad," he said softly, "don't be mad at Naomi. She didn't hurt me. I was scared." The word struck Marcus harder than any headline could. He set down the glass, kneeling to meet his son's eyes. "Scared of what?" "Ethan. Scared you'd be mad if I told the truth. I thought you'd be disappointed I got hurt playing where I shouldn't." Marcus's throat closed. His son had lied not because of Naomi, but because of him, because of the pressure to be perfect, to live up to the expectations of a father who was already drowning in them. He pulled Ethan into his arms, whispering, "I'm never disappointed in you. I just wish I'd listened." The boy's small arms wrapped around his neck. "Can we get Naomi back?" Marcus blinked against the sting of tears. "I don't know," he admitted, "but I'll try." Later that night, as the mansion settled into silence, Marcus stood at the window. The sea, a dark sheet stretching into the horizon. He thought of Naomi's final words. "You don't know what you're doing." She had been right. The next step would demand more than an apology. It would demand humility, the courage to face his own reflection, and the willingness to repair what he had broken not just with Naomi, but with his son. For the first time in years, Marcus Alden feared not the boardroom or the headlines, but the possibility that he had failed the two people who mattered most. The next morning dawned gray over Newport. A storm brewed over the Atlantic, waves striking the cliffs with a dull roar that rattled the windows of the Alden mansion. Marcus Alden stood at the edge of his study, staring at the framed photographs that lined the mahogany shelves. Most were of Ethan, smiling, growing from a toddler into the boy he was now. A few showed Grace, his late wife, her eyes calm and unshakable. He whispered into the empty air, "I wish you were here. Grace, I don't know what I'm doing." The storm outside felt like a mirror of his chest, dark, restless, impossible to still. He had thought money and power could shield him from chaos. Yet here he was, one false decision tearing open the fragile walls of his home. Ethan shuffled into the room, his pajama sleeves too long, dragging against his hands. He hesitated at the door. Marcus turned and softened his voice. "Come here, buddy." Ethan climbed into the leather chair across from his father, eyes wide and guilty. He held the stuffed bear Naomi had once sewn a patch onto when its arm tore. Marcus leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Ethan, we need to talk. Tell me the truth. What really happened yesterday?" The boy bit his lip. His voice trembled. "I was playing in the attic. I wasn't supposed to. I found Mom's old box of pictures. I climbed on the chair to reach it. Then I fell. The chair tipped and I hit my arm. It hurt a lot. Marcus's chest ached. And the bruise. That's from the fall." Ethan nodded, tears filling his eyes. "I got scared. I thought if I told you, you'd be mad at me for breaking the rule. So when you came in and asked, I said Naomi hit me. I didn't mean to, but I didn't want you to be mad." The room fell silent, broken only by the patter of rain against glass. Marcus felt the weight of every choice he'd made pressing down on him. His son's lie wasn't born of malice, it was born of fear. Fear of disappointing him. Marcus swallowed hard. "Ethan, I would never be mad at you for telling the truth. But what you said hurt someone very badly. Naomi lost her job because of it. She lost the place where she belonged." Ethan buried his face into the bear. His voice was muffled. "Can we fix it? Can we bring her back?" Marcus's throat tightened. He wanted to promise yes, but promises were fragile when trust had already shattered. "I don't know yet, but I will try. That's my responsibility." He reached across, pulling Ethan into his arms. The boy clung tightly, small shoulders trembling. Marcus closed his eyes and pressed his chin against his son's hair. For a moment, he allowed himself to feel the full weight of failure, not as a CEO, not as a public figure, but as a father who had let fear speak louder than truth. Later that day, Marcus drove Ethan to school through the rain-slick streets. Every stoplight, every wiper swipe across the windshield felt like a judgment. At drop-off, Ethan turned back before entering the building. "Dad, if Naomi doesn't forgive us, will she hate me forever?" Marcus crouched to meet his eyes. "No, Naomi doesn't hate you. She might be hurt, she might be angry, but hate, no. She's stronger than that." Ethan nodded, but the worry didn't leave his small face. Marcus returned to the mansion, but the silence gnawed at him. He found himself standing outside the room Naomi had once occupied, the bed stripped, the closet bare. He pictured her folding Ethan's laundry with care, humming softly as the boy ran circles around her. He remembered how she spoke about her late mother, how dignity was the only inheritance she had received. He had crushed that dignity in a moment of unchecked rage. His phone buzzed. It was Anthony Reed, his longtime attorney and confidant. "Marcus, you need to know. The press has picked this up. Providence Daily is running a piece tonight. They don't have all the facts, but the headline is Ugly Billionaire CEO Accuses Black Maid of Abuse. This won't stay local." Marcus closed his eyes. "It already feels bigger than me. How do I undo it?" Anthony's tone was steady. "You can't undo. Marcus, you can only face it. And if you don't, someone else will define the story for you." When the call ended, Marcus sat in the empty room until dusk. His thoughts circled back to Naomi's final words, "You don't know what you're doing." He finally understood. He had let grief, fear, and prejudice dictate his judgment. He rose, gripping the doorframe. He knew what came next. He had to seek Naomi out, not for a clean slate, but for accountability. That evening, he stood at the balcony overlooking the dark Atlantic. Rain had ceased, leaving the air heavy with salt and silence. He whispered into the night, "Naomi, I failed you, and I failed my son. I will make it right, even if it costs me everything." The storm had passed, but inside Marcus, another was just beginning. The next evening, Marcus Alden sat in his study with the lights dimmed, staring at the untouched bourbon on his desk. His empire stretched from Manhattan skyscrapers to ventures across the Atlantic, yet none of it seemed solid anymore. What was the weight of all those billions? When the foundation of his home had cracked under his own hand, he heard the faint sound of the front door opening. The butler, hesitant, announced that Naomi Brooks had returned to collect her things. Marcus's heart jolted. He rose so quickly the chair scraped across the hardwood floor. He walked down the grand staircase, each step heavier than the last. Naomi stood in the foyer, her figure still and composed. She wore a simple navy coat, her hair tied back, a travel bag at her feet. Her face carried no trace of tears, no pleading, only a quiet, unshakable strength. Marcus wanted to speak first, to pour out apologies, but his throat closed. He finally managed. "Naomi, please, let me explain. I know the truth now. Ethan told me what happened." Naomi's gaze was steady, unwavering. The truth was always there. "Mr. Alden, the problem wasn't the truth. The problem was that you didn't see me. You saw what you feared." Her words cut clean, not cruel, but undeniable. Marcus tried again. "I was wrong. I let anger blind me. I was afraid for Ethan. I thought she raised a hand, stopping him. You thought what so many people think when they look at me, that I must be the danger, that my skin, my place in this house, made me suspect. You didn't ask. You didn't wait. You judged." Marcus's chest tightened. Shame pressed on him harder than any boardroom defeat. "I can't undo what I did, but I can make it right. I'll rehire you, raise your salary, whatever you need." Naomi shook her head. "This isn't about a paycheck. This is about dignity, about trust. Once it's broken, money doesn't patch it." Ethan appeared at the top of the stairs, his small hands gripping the railing. "Naomi," he whispered, his voice cracking, "I'm sorry. I lied. I made Daddy think." Naomi's expression softened for a moment. She stepped closer to the boy, crouching so her eyes met his. "Ethan, you don't owe me your guilt. Children make mistakes when they're scared. But what matters is you tell the truth now. That's how you grow strong." She brushed a gentle hand across his cheek. Ethan's tears spilled over. "Will you come back?" Naomi's eyes glistened, but her voice was firm. "I don't know. Sweetheart, right now, I need to walk away. I need to keep my head held high." Marcus's heart clenched, watching his son cling to her sleeve. He stepped forward, voice breaking. "Naomi, please, don't leave like this. I need a chance to show you that I can change." She rose slowly, her posture calm yet resolute. "Change isn't proved by desperate words in the foyer of a mansion. It's proved in the choices you make when no one is watching. You want me to believe you've changed. Then live it. Not for me, but for Ethan. For yourself." Her travel bag thudded softly as she lifted it. The silence in the house was immense, broken only by the sound of her footsteps across the marble. She paused at the door, her back straight, then turned slightly. "I gave this home my care, my loyalty, my time. But when it mattered, you gave me suspicion. That will not be forgotten. Maybe one day it can be forgiven. But forgiveness is not owed. It is earned." The words landed like stones in Marcus's chest. He wanted to chase her, to plead until his voice broke. But something in her poise, in her unflinching dignity, stopped him. He knew that to run after her now would only cheapen the truth of her stance. The door opened. Cold air rushed in from the ocean cliffs. Then it shut, leaving behind an emptiness deeper than the sea itself. Ethan sobbed quietly, collapsing against Marcus's side. Marcus held him, but his arms felt powerless. For the first time in decades, he realized that he could not buy back what he had lost. He could not negotiate dignity, could not broker forgiveness. He carried Ethan upstairs and tucked him into bed. The boy clutched his patched teddy bear, whispering Naomi's name until sleep overtook him. Marcus sat in the chair beside him, head bowed, replaying Naomi's words again and again. "You didn't see me? You saw what you feared." The line echoed through his mind like a gavel striking, a verdict not from a court but from conscience. He thought of Grace, how she would have scolded him for leaping to judgment, how she always said, "Patience is a form of love." Marcus whispered into the dark, "I failed you, Grace. I failed Naomi. I failed Ethan. But I will not stay down." The storm outside raged louder, but inside Marcus, something else stirred a grim resolve, the recognition that redemption would demand more than apologies. It would demand that he confront not only the world's prejudice, but his own. The house groaned under the wind, but Marcus Alden sat in silence, knowing the hardest part was just beginning. The night stretched endlessly in the Alden mansion. Outside, the Atlantic pounded against the cliffs, each wave a reminder of how relentless nature could be. Marcus Alden sat in his study with the curtains drawn wide, the sea his only companion. A single lamp threw a pale circle of light across his desk. Papers were scattered everywhere, investment reports, contracts, outlines for the next board meeting in Manhattan, but his eyes couldn't focus on numbers. His mind returned again and again to Naomi's words, "You didn't see me. You saw what you feared." He leaned back in the chair, the leather creaking under his weight, and closed his eyes. He saw her face, calm even as he cast judgment. He saw Ethan's tears, his small body curled in Naomi's arms in the years before Grace died. And he saw himself towering, angry, blind. Marcus whispered into the quiet, "What have I become?" He poured himself a bourbon, but let it sit untouched. Drinking wouldn't dull this ache. This wasn't a problem to silence with liquor, or to bury beneath stock market winds. This was raw, human, and unfixable with power alone. The old grandfather clock ticked, each swing a reminder that time moved forward, whether he was ready or not. At midnight, Marcus rose and walked through the silent halls of his mansion. The air was heavy with absence, Naomi's absence, Grace's absence, the two women who had anchored Ethan, who had given this house warmth. He paused at Ethan's room. The boy slept curled under the quilt, his patched teddy bear pressed to his chest. In sleep, Ethan's face was innocent, unburdened by the storm that consumed his father. Marcus's heart swelled with love and broke with shame. He whispered, "You deserve better than me." Back in his study, Marcus pulled open the bottom drawer of his desk and retrieved a wooden box. Inside lay Grace's letters, written before her death. He had read them countless times, but tonight they cut differently. One line, written in her delicate hand, struck deep. "When you are lost, remember that love is not control. It is patience, and patience is courage." He set the letter down, rubbing his temples. He realized he had demanded perfection from Ethan out of fear, had demanded loyalty from Naomi out of authority. Neither was love. At 2 a.m, unable to sleep, Marcus walked out onto the balcony. The wind whipped against him, sharp with sea spray. He let it sting his skin, reminding him he was still alive. Below, waves crashed violently against the rocks, but beyond the chaos, the horizon stretched wide and steady. For the first time in years, Marcus felt small, not in the humiliating sense he once feared in corporate boardrooms, but in a humbling, human sense. Billionaire or not, he was a man who had to earn trust like anyone else. The hours dragged, filled with restless pacing and quiet prayers. He thought about Naomi's life outside this mansion. Did she have family to turn to, friends who would believe her side of the story? Or was she alone, carrying his accusation like a stain she hadn't earned? The thought made him wince. By dawn, Marcus sat at the kitchen counter, his head heavy in his hands. The sunrise painted streaks of orange across the sky, but he felt no warmth in it. He had not slept. He had not eaten. All he had done was reckon with himself. Ethan shuffled into the kitchen in his pajamas, rubbing his eyes. "Dad, you're still up?" Marcus forced a tired smile. "Couldn't sleep." Ethan climbed onto the stool beside him. "I had a dream Naomi was here. She was making pancakes, the way she does with blueberries, and she said everything would be okay." Marcus swallowed hard. "That sounds like Naomi." Ethan looked at him seriously. "Are you going to find her?" Marcus hesitated, then nodded slowly. "Yes, I have to. Not because it's easy, but because it's right." Ethan's small hand reached for his. "Then I'll help." The boy's words pierced him with a strange mixture of hope and grief. Marcus realized that Ethan wasn't asking for perfection. He was asking for honesty. That, at least, Marcus could try to give. Later that morning, Marcus called Anthony Reed, his attorney and old friend. His voice was hoarse from the long night. "Anthony, I need your help. I need to find Naomi." Anthony's tone was measured but supportive. "I figured you'd say that. I've already made some calls. She's staying with her cousin in Providence. But Marcus, you should know the community is talking. Some see her as the victim of prejudice. Others see you as the villain. This isn't just personal anymore. It's public." Marcus closed his eyes. "Then I'll face the public. I'll face anyone. But first, I have to face her." Anthony sighed. "You'll need humility like you've never shown before. Are you ready for that?" Marcus looked toward Ethan, who was now sitting at the table sketching a picture of a house with 3 stick figures himself, his father, and Naomi. Marcus felt his throat tighten. "Yes," he said softly. "I'm ready." That afternoon, Marcus prepared to leave for Providence. As he buttoned his coat, he felt a strange steadiness settle over him. The night had stripped him down, left him raw and restless, but it had also clarified something. Redemption wasn't a speech, wasn't a press release, wasn't a corporate initiative. It was a road walked slowly, one truth at a time. He kissed Ethan on the forehead before leaving. "I'll be back soon, and when I do, I hope Naomi will be with me." Ethan hugged him tightly. "Bring her home. Dad." Marcus nodded, heart heavy but resolute. He stepped out into the crisp morning air, the cliffs of Newport behind him and Providence ahead. The long night of reckoning was over. The harder journey seeking forgiveness was just beginning. The drive from Newport to Providence was only 40 miles, but to Marcus Alden it felt like a pilgrimage. He kept both hands tight on the steering wheel of his black SUV, his mind running faster than the rain-slick highway beneath him. Every mile brought him closer to Naomi Brooks, the woman he had wronged with a single outburst, the woman whose dignity had made his power look fragile. The sky was overcast, gray clouds sagging low over Rhode Island. Traffic was light, but Marcus barely noticed the road signs. He kept replaying Naomi's words. You didn't see me. You saw what you feared. By the time he reached Providence, his chest felt heavy. He parked outside a modest brick apartment building near Elmwood Avenue. Children played in the narrow courtyard, their laughter rising into the chill air. He realized how out of place he looked stepping from the SUV in his tailored coat, a billionaire in a neighborhood that carried the quiet marks of working-class struggle. He climbed the steps and knocked. The door opened to reveal a woman in her 30s, sharp eyes, and a skeptical expression. You must be Mr. Alden, she said, her tone cool. Naomi told me you might come. I'm her cousin, Denise. Marcus nodded, trying to hide his nerves. Is she here? Denise crossed her arms. She is, but she doesn't owe you anything. If she chooses not to see you, you'll leave. I understand, Marcus said softly, but I have to try. Denise studied him for a moment, then stepped aside. Fine, but don't waste her time. Inside. The apartment smelled faintly of coffee and laundry detergent. It was small but warm. Lived in. Marcus followed Denise into the living room. Naomi stood near the window, arms crossed, her posture tall and unyielding. She didn't smile. You found me. Marcus lowered his gaze. I had to. Naomi, I came to say what I should have said before I was wrong. Completely, shamefully wrong. Naomi's voice was even, calm, but edged with steel. Words are cheap, Mr. Alden, especially from men who have everything. What do you expect that I'll just nod and step back into your mansion, as if nothing happened? Marcus admitted, I don't expect that. I expect anger. I expect distrust. But I needed to face you. Not for appearances, not for my reputation, but because I failed you. I stripped you of dignity in the place you gave so much of yourself, and I need to own that. Denise shifted by the kitchen counter, arms still folded, listening intently. Naomi tilted her head slightly, her eyes searching his face. Do you even understand what you took from me? It wasn't just a job. It was trust. It was safety. It was the proof that maybe for once my work, my care, my presence would be enough, and you shattered it with a single shout. Marcus swallowed, his throat tight. I know, and I can't ask you to forget, but I can ask you to let me prove that I can be better. Not with words, but with choices, with actions you can see. Naomi's gaze didn't soften. Actions? Yes, Marcus said. I've already told Ethan the truth. He knows he lied, and he knows why it hurt you. He asked me to bring you home, but I told him I can't decide for you. Only you can decide if you'll let me try to repair the damage. For the first time, Naomi's expression wavered. Pain flickered across her face, quickly hidden behind the shield of composure. Ethan is a good boy. He doesn't deserve to grow up with lies. But forgiveness, Mr. Alden, isn't a switch you flip. I know, Marcus said, his voice quiet but steady. Forgiveness is earned, even if it takes the rest of my life. I will try to earn it. Denise broke the silence. Naomi, you don't owe him anything. Remember that. Naomi nodded slightly but kept her eyes on Marcus. Maybe not. But Ethan, he's just a child, and children shouldn't carry the burden of their parents' mistakes. Marcus stepped forward but kept his distance, his hands open at his sides. I'm not here as the billionaire. I'm not here with contracts or promises of money. I'm here as a man who failed his son and failed you. And I am asking, not demanding, not expecting, just asking for a chance to learn how to be better. Naomi looked at him for a long moment. The air in the room was taut, filled with unspoken things. Finally, she exhaled. I don't know what I'll decide, but I'll say this if you want to prove change. Start by showing it to the world, not just to me, because what happened wasn't private. People are talking. Your power tried to erase me. If you're serious, use that same power to protect others like me. Marcus felt a shiver run through him. Her words struck deeper than he expected. You're right, and I will. Not tomorrow. Not with press releases, but with real changes. I'll start with my company, with my board, with the culture that let me act on fear instead of fact. Naomi studied him carefully, then looked away, her jaw tightening. You have a long road ahead. I know, Marcus whispered. Denise finally spoke again, her voice softer this time. Naomi, maybe. Let him show what he means. Doesn't mean you have to forgive. Just let him show. Naomi didn't answer right away. She turned back to the window, the gray light falling across her face. After a long silence, she said, I won't return to the mansion. Not yet. But I'll allow you to come here. If Ethan wants to see me, he can visit. And I'll watch to see if your actions match your words. Marcus exhaled, relief mingling with sorrow. Thank you. That's more than I deserve. Naomi's voice sharpened again. Don't thank me yet. This isn't mercy. This is caution. One misstep, and I walk away for good. Marcus bowed his head. Fair. As he left the apartment, Marcus felt the cold air sting his face. He hadn't won back her trust. He hadn't healed the wound. But for the first time since that terrible day, a door had cracked open not wide, not enough to step through, but enough to glimpse the path forward. The following week unfolded like a storm Marcus Alden could not outrun. Headlines spread beyond Rhode Island, beyond New York, beyond the country's borders. His face, sharp in boardroom photos, now stared from news sites beside phrases like Billionaire CEO accuses Black Maid and power, prejudice, and the Alden mansion. At first, Marcus thought silence might contain the fire, but silence in the digital age was oxygen. By midweek, podcasts debated whether his company, Alden Global Holdings, could survive the scandal. Activists posted Naomi's name with hashtags demanding justice. Investors called Anthony Reid with worried voices about stocks dipping 3% in a single day. Inside the Newport mansion, Marcus sat at the dining table with Ethan, who pushed cereal around his bowl. The boy's usual chatter was gone, replaced by quiet guilt. Dad, he said softly, is this all my fault? Marcus leaned across the table, gripping his son's small hand. No. Ethan, this is not your fault. It's mine. Adults are supposed to protect, to listen. I didn't. I made the choice, and now I have to face it. Ethan blinked back tears. But they're saying bad things about you on TV. They don't know you. Marcus felt the ache in his chest, but he forced a steady voice. Sometimes the world sees only the mistake, and it's my job to prove that mistakes don't have to be the end of the story. That afternoon, Anthony arrived from Manhattan. His suit was immaculate, his tone clipped with urgency. Marcus, the board is restless. They're calling an emergency session. Some want you to resign as chairman until this cools down. Marcus stood tall, though inside he felt the old fear rising. If they want my seat, they can try to take it, but I won't step down to hide. This isn't just about me. It's about Naomi. It's about Ethan. And it's about every person who's been judged before being heard. Anthony studied him. If you go public, you risk everything. Reputation, investors, partnerships, Marcus interrupted, his voice low but resolute. "Then so be it. What good is a fortune if it buys silence instead of truth?" The next morning, Marcus walked into Alden Tower in Manhattan. The boardroom was thick with tension. 12 executives around the polished mahogany table. Some looked at him with disappointment, others with quiet support, a few with open contempt. William Hart, a senior board member with silver hair, spoke first. "Marcus, this scandal jeopardizes everything we've built. Our image is trust, and right now, we have none. The shareholders demand accountability." Marcus met his gaze. "Accountability is exactly why I'm here. I accused an innocent woman. I acted on fear and prejudice. And I will not bury that truth behind PR spin. If we are to lead in this century, it won't be with silence. It will be with honesty." Murmurs rippled across the room. Hart's voice sharpened. "Do you understand the risk? Apologies invite lawsuits." Marcus's jaw tightened. "Then let them come. I would rather face lawsuits than live with cowardice." A younger board member, Maya Johnson, finally spoke. "He's right. We can't preach diversity in our reports and ignore it in our actions. Marcus is doing what leaders should do, owning the failure." The debate raged for 2 hours, voices clashing like swords, but in the end, Marcus remained in his seat. The board would not force him out, though several warned he was gambling with the company's future. That evening, Marcus stood before cameras at a press conference in New York. Journalists filled the hall, microphones bristling like weapons. He stepped to the podium, his tie neatly knotted, his face pale but steady. "I am Marcus Alden," he began, his voice echoing. "I am a billionaire, yes. But before that, I am a man. And as a man, I failed. I accused Naomi Brooks, a woman who gave her loyalty and care to my household, of something she did not do. I let fear guide me instead of truth, and I wronged her deeply." Flashes erupted as reporters scribbled furiously. Marcus continued, "No title, no fortune, no power excuses prejudice. I cannot undo what I did, but I can own it, and I will. Starting today, Alden Global Holdings will launch an independent review of workplace equity across all branches. We will establish a foundation in Naomi Brooks's name to support workers who face wrongful accusations and bias, and I will dedicate a portion of my own wealth to fund it." A hand shot up. "Mr. Alden, has Ms. Brooks agreed to this?" Marcus paused. "No, she owes me nothing. This is not to earn her forgiveness. This is to do what should have been done long ago." Another reporter shouted, "Do you expect to keep your position after this scandal?" Marcus looked straight into the cameras. "If keeping my position requires silence and denial, then no. But if leadership means truth, even when it costs, then I will continue to lead." The hall erupted with questions, but Marcus stepped back from the podium, his statement complete. Back in Providence, Naomi watched the broadcast from her cousin's apartment. Denise folded her arms skeptically. "He's smooth with words. I'll give him that." Naomi's eyes stayed on the screen. She saw not the billionaire in a tailored suit, but the man who had come to her apartment humbled, stripped of certainty. Something in his tone tonight was different, not polished, not rehearsed, but raw. "Still," she whispered, "words are only beginnings. Let's see what he does next." Meanwhile, Ethan had been allowed to watch the press conference at home with the nanny. When Marcus returned that night, the boy rushed to him, eyes wide. "Dad, you said her name. On TV. You told everyone the truth." Marcus knelt, hugging him tight. "Yes, Ethan. The world deserved to hear it, and so did she. In that embrace, Marcus felt the faint stir of something he hadn't known in weeks, the possibility of redemption. The press conference had ended, but the storm it unleashed had only begun. For days, news outlets replayed Marcus Alden's words on a loop, dissecting his every pause, his every admission. Some called it the bravest speech of his career. Others called it calculated damage control. Hashtags trended across social media. Alden accountability. You stand with Naomi. Money and power. But in Providence, Naomi Brooks's life was being turned upside down. She hadn't asked to be a symbol. She hadn't asked for her name to become the rallying cry of activists. She was simply a woman who wanted to do her work with dignity and care. Her phone buzzed nonstop. Strangers sent messages of support. Others sent threats. Paparazzi camped outside her cousin Denise's building, cameras flashing whenever she stepped out for groceries. Naomi felt her world shrink with every headline. One afternoon, she sat at the kitchen table, her hands wrapped around a cooling mug of tea. Denise paced the room, angry. This isn't right. They're using your name like a weapon. You never asked for any of this. Naomi sighed. I know, but maybe it's bigger than me now. Maybe it's about every maid, every worker who's been accused without being heard. Denise stopped pacing. And what about you? What about your peace? You've been dragged into a spotlight you never wanted. Naomi looked out the window, at the children playing in the courtyard. Peace doesn't come by hiding. If my name can mean something to others, maybe that's worth it. But it doesn't mean I forgive Marcus. Not yet. Meanwhile, in Newport, Marcus was learning that apology was only the beginning. His staff had arranged interviews, but he canceled them all. He didn't want polished sound bites. He wanted to act. He called Anthony Reed late into the night, drafting plans for the Naomi Brooks Foundation. He spoke with Maya Johnson about setting up anonymous reporting lines for employees across Alden Global Holdings. But investors were restless. Stocks wavered. Rumors spread that rivals were circling, ready to weaken his empire. Marcus sat through meeting after meeting where voices demanded he step back. Each time, he said calmly, if my leadership depends on silence, then you never had a leader. Ethan remained his anchor. Every night, Marcus tucked him in, answering the boy's endless questions. Will Naomi ever come home? Will people stop being mad at you? Will you lose your job? Marcus kissed his forehead each time. I don't know the answers, Ethan, but I know this will face them together. Then, one Friday morning, Naomi herself was pulled directly into the storm. A local activist group invited her to speak at a community forum in Providence. She hesitated. She wasn't a politician or a lawyer. She was just Naomi. But Denise urged her to go. If you don't tell your story, others will tell it for you. So she went. The church basement was packed with folding chairs and voices buzzing with anger and hope. When Naomi stepped to the microphone, the room hushed. She took a breath, her hands trembling slightly. But her voice was clear. My name is Naomi Brooks. For years, I worked quietly in a home, caring for a boy I loved as if he were my own. One mistake, one moment of fear, and all of that was stripped away. Not because of the truth, but because of assumptions. I was accused before I was heard. Murmurs rippled through the room. Cameras recorded. I'm not here to destroy a man's career, she continued. I'm here to remind us all that dignity is not optional, that people like me, maids, nannies, workers in the shadows, deserve to be seen, to be respected, to be believed. I did nothing wrong, yet I was treated as if my worth was less. That must change. Not just for me, but for everyone who has ever been judged without a voice. The crowd erupted in applause. Some stood, fists raised. Naomi's heart raced, not from fear, but from a strange, steady courage she hadn't known she possessed. Back in Newport, Marcus watched the live stream. His throat tightened as he saw her, standing tall, her presence commanding without any boardroom or billions. She was stronger than he had ever allowed himself to see. He whispered to the empty room, "That's the real leader." The next day, Marcus made a decision that startled his advisors. He requested to attend a second community forum, this time in person. Anthony protested, "They'll tear you apart. You'll walk into a hostile room. You don't need this for optics." Marcus shook his head. "This isn't optics. This is truth. If I can't stand beside Naomi now, I don't deserve to stand at all." And so, 2 nights later, Marcus entered the same church basement in Providence. The room went silent as he walked in an expensive suit amid working-class jackets and folded arms. Some hissed, others muttered angrily, but Marcus walked to the front, stopping a respectful distance from Naomi. He waited until the room stilled, then spoke. "I am Marcus Alden. I am the man who wronged Naomi Brooks. I don't ask you to forgive me. I ask you to hold me accountable, and I ask you to watch me, to make sure my words are not empty. Change will not happen in silence. It will happen in the open, with eyes on me, with eyes on every man and woman who holds power." The tension in the room thickened. Naomi studied him from the side, her arms crossed, unreadable. An elderly woman in the front row shouted, "Men like you always say sorry when they're caught. Oh, why should we believe you're different?" Marcus met her eyes. "Don't believe me. Believe what I do. If I fail, call me out. If I falter, demand more. Don't let me hide behind my wealth. Strip it away with truth." The room was silent again. Then, slowly, someone clapped, another followed. Soon, half the room applauded while others still glared, unconvinced. Naomi's gaze softened, just slightly. She didn't smile, but she didn't turn away. As Marcus left that night, reporters crowded him with questions, but one image lingered most in his mind. Naomi, standing strong, her dignity untouched, no longer a maid in the shadows, but a voice the world could not ignore. The weeks that followed brought no calm. For every supporter who praised Marcus Alden's honesty, another critic sharpened their knives. Financial magazines labeled him reckless. Talk shows speculated about his downfall. Anonymous blogs spread rumors that Naomi Brooks had engineered the scandal to extort money. Marcus sat in his Manhattan office one Monday morning, staring at a stack of shareholder letters. Some were furious. "Sell your stake. Step down before you ruin us all." Others were cautiously supportive. "Stay strong. Don't give in." Anthony Reed entered, dropping a fresh report on the desk. "It's hard again," he said grimly. "He's gathering votes to push you out. Claims you're prioritizing social crusades over profits." Marcus exhaled slowly. William Hart has waited years for an excuse. Now he has one. Anthony leaned in. This isn't just politics. He's meeting with Gordon LeClaire. The name hit Marcus like a stone. Gordon LeClaire, once his closest partner, now a rival magnate with a reputation for ruthless takeovers. If Hart and LeClaire joined forces, Alden Global Holdings could face a hostile bid. Marcus rose, pacing to the window. Outside, the Manhattan skyline glittered, but he felt the ground shifting beneath him. "They think I'm weakened. They think Naomi's dignity is my liability." Anthony's voice dropped. "Marcus, you need allies? public ones. If Naomi stood beside you now, if she vouched for your sincerity. Marcus cut him off sharply. No, I won't drag her into my defense. She doesn't owe me that. This fight is mine. Meanwhile, in Providence, Naomi was grappling with her own storm. The activist community hailed her as a hero, but not all attention was welcome. Strangers stopped her in grocery stores, urging her to run for office. Journalists pressed for interviews, and darker voices whispered online, questioning her past, twisting her story into something ugly. One evening, Denise burst into the apartment waving her phone. Look at this. They're saying you had disciplinary issues at your old teaching job. Total lies. Naomi, they're digging. Naomi read the smear with a sinking heart. Of course they are. Powerful men don't fall quietly. They'll drag me down if it saves them. Denise slammed the phone down. You can't face this alone. You need a platform. A lawyer. Naomi shook her head. What I need is truth. And Marcus knows exactly who's behind this. Back in New York, Marcus confronted Hart in the boardroom. The older man sat smug, his hands folded. Your foundation, your apologies, they're bleeding us. Shareholders are restless. Gordon LeClaire agrees it's time for fresh leadership. Marcus stood at the head of the table, his voice low but cutting. What you call bleeding is what I call healing. If you want profits at the cost of dignity, go to Gordon. But if you stay here, understand this. Alden Global will not be built on silence and prejudice. Not while I lead. Hart smirked. For now. That evening, Marcus returned to Newport, exhausted. Ethan ran to greet him, but Marcus's mind was elsewhere. He sat on the couch, head in his hands, when Ethan climbed beside him. Dad, why are they so mad at you? Marcus forced himself to look into his son's eyes. Because when you stand for something true, people who profit from lies will try to break you. That's the price of change. Ethan frowned, thinking. Then we have to be strong. Right. Marcus hugged him tightly, stronger than ever. 2 days later, Naomi herself called. Her voice over the line was steady, though Marcus could hear the weariness. We need to talk. They met at a quiet cafe in Providence, away from cameras. Naomi slid a newspaper across the table. The headline screamed Naomi Brooks, the woman behind the scandal. They're painting me as a schemer, she said flatly. Your enemies want to destroy me to get to you. Marcus's jaw clenched. Then they'll have to face me directly. I won't let you be their target. Naomi's eyes searched his face. And what if standing by you destroys me anyway? What if I lose everything again? Marcus leaned forward, his voice raw. Then I'll stand beside you. Naomi, not as a billionaire shielding a maid, as a man standing with a woman who deserves respect. If they want a war, they'll get one. But this time, we'll fight together. Naomi studied him, her expression unreadable. For a moment, Marcus feared she would walk away again. But finally, she nodded once. Then understand this. Marcus, if I stand beside you, it's not for your reputation. It's for Ethan. And it's for every woman who refuses to be erased. Marcus felt a flicker of something he hadn't known in weeks. Hope. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But solidarity. That night, as the rain lashed the streets of Providence, Marcus Alden knew the battle was no longer just about his empire. It was about truth, dignity, and whether he had the courage to defend them, no matter the cost. The boardroom on the top floor of Alden Tower had never felt so tense. The mahogany table gleamed under bright lights, but the faces around it were dark with calculation. Marcus Alden entered with his shoulders squared, carrying not just the weight of his company, but the storm of weeks spent in public scrutiny. He knew today could end his career or redefine it. William Hart sat near the center, his silver hair perfectly combed, his eyes cold with triumph. Beside him was Gordon LeClaire, invited as a guest consultant, though everyone knew he was the vulture circling, ready to feast if Marcus fell. The other directors murmured, papers rustling, while Anthony Reed stood in the corner, steady but visibly braced for battle. Hart began with a polished sneer. "Gentlemen, ladies, thank you for assembling. The issue before us is leadership. Mr. Alden has entangled this company in scandal, invited instability, and undermined shareholder trust. The stock price reflects the uncertainty. We cannot afford to gamble on reputation." Gordon LeClaire leaned forward, his voice smooth as oil. "I agree. Marcus is a brilliant man, but brilliance cannot save a brand drowning in controversy. My firm is prepared to offer guidance and, if necessary, resources to steady the ship." Murmurs of agreement rippled around the table. Marcus let them talk. He had learned that patience was a form of power. When silence finally fell, he rose slowly, pressing his palms against the polished wood. "You speak of reputation as if it were a number on a graph," Marcus said, his voice calm but carrying. "But reputation is not built in markets. It is built in truth. And when the truth is ugly, hiding it is cowardice. Facing it is leadership." Hart's lips curled. Fine words. But the world doesn't run on poetry. It runs on profits. Marcus met his gaze. Profits mean nothing if earned on the backs of silence and fear. I made a mistake. I accused Naomi Brooks unjustly, and instead of burying it, I faced it. That is what our employees need to see. That is what the public needs to see. Not a man hiding behind PR, but a leader accountable for his actions. A younger director shifted in her seat. And what of the shareholders? They care about dividends, not dignity. Marcus turned toward her. "Do you think dignity is separate from dividends? A company that silences truth will collapse sooner or later. A company that builds trust will outlast markets. If you can't see that, then you're gambling with more than money. You're gambling with the soul of this company." The room went quiet. Even Hart looked unsettled by the force of Marcus's words. But LeClaire smirked. "Touching speech, but you're still bleeding. And bleeding companies are ripe for takeover." The door to the boardroom opened. Heads turned. Naomi Brooks walked in, flanked by Denise. Gas filled the room. No one had expected her here. She walked with calm dignity, her eyes steady, her navy coat simple but powerful in its plainness. She stopped at Marcus's side, but didn't touch him. She faced the board. "My name is Naomi Brooks," she said, her voice clear. "Yes, I am the maid, Mr. Alden accused. And yes, he was wrong. He wronged me. He hurt me. But he admitted it, not in secret, but in front of the world. And that matters." The room was frozen. Every director caught between shock and fascination. Naomi continued, "I don't stand here to protect Marcus. I stand here to remind you what this company claims to be. You put words like equity and diversity in glossy reports. But when a woman like me is accused, do those words protect her? Or do they vanish under profit margins?" Marcus chose not to vanish. He chose to face it. And for that, he has shown more leadership than any of you willing to trade his failure for a merger. Denise stood at the back, arms folded, her eyes fierce. The board buzzed with whispers. Anthony caught Marcus's eye, nodding slightly, as if to say, "This changes everything." Hart sputtered, "This is irregular." "She has no standing here," Marcus interrupted, his voice cutting like glass. "She has more standing than any of us. Because this boardroom exists in the world, she represents the world of workers, of dignity, of lives affected by our choices. If we can't face her, we can't face anyone. For the first time, Hart faltered. Naomi stepped back slightly, her role complete. She had not forgiven Marcus. Not yet. But she had spoken truth in a place where truth was rare. After hours of argument, the vote came. Marcus retained his seat by a narrow margin. Hart's motion failed. Gordon LeClaire left with a scowl. His plans postponed, but not forgotten. When the boardroom emptied, Marcus remained, staring at the empty chairs. Naomi stood near the window, looking out at the skyline. "You didn't have to come," Marcus said quietly. Naomi turned. "I didn't come for you. I came for Ethan, for every worker watching, for myself." Marcus nodded, accepting the boundary, and still, "Thank you." Naomi's gaze softened just slightly. "Don't thank me yet. Show me. Show all of us that your words won't fade." Then she left with Denise, her steps measured, her dignity unshaken. Marcus sank into the chair at the head of the table. He had won, but he felt no triumph. The real battle wasn't Hart or LeClaire. It was proving, day after day, that he could be the man Naomi demanded he become. The story of Marcus Alden and Naomi Brooks reminds us that dignity is not a luxury. It is a birthright. In moments of fear or anger, we often judge before we understand. And sometimes, as in Marcus's case, those judgments wound the very people who have stood by us with loyalty and care. For older audiences especially, who have lived through decades of change, this lesson is timeless. Respect cannot be bought with wealth or erased with apology. It must be nurtured through choices, daily and deliberate. The tale also shows us the power of resilience. Naomi's refusal to be silenced, her decision to walk away with dignity instead of bitterness, is a model for all of us. It reminds us that no matter how others see us, our worth is never defined by their prejudice. In life, we may never face a boardroom battle like Marcus, but each of us will face moments where we must choose between pride and humility, between hiding the truth and owning it. And if we dare to choose humility, we may find not only forgiveness, but hope. Thank you for staying with us through this emotional journey. Stories like these matter because they remind us of dignity, love, and the choices that define us. If this touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel, so together we can keep exploring stories that heal, challenge, and inspire.